Hi everyone, I'm Gary Wood. I'm the CEO of High Five, and with me today is Lee Watts. He is the Recruitment and People Analytics Manager at Travelstart. Travelstart is one of our favorite flight aggregation platforms who have now more than 200 staff. So welcome on the show, Lee.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Gary. Really looking forward to discussing all things tech, travel, and recruitment.
Brilliant. Well, I think maybe just to kick off, maybe tell us more about yourself and Travelstart and the background and how you got into the position of recruiting people and analytics within Travelstart.
Okay, great. So, Travelstart is one of Africa's leading online travel agencies. It's a really cool company. It's a really great place to work. As a business, we straddle three industry sectors, namely travel, technology, and of course e-commerce. So, with the sort of people that pride ourselves in transparency and putting our customers first, so inevitably, we do have a look at larger focus things like simplicity and price. When you come to my journey, I'd like to think I'm a little more blessed than most. I don't know if, luckiness has been bestowed upon me by the big man above, but ultimately my journey is a pretty interesting one. I spent the largest portion of my career abroad, and I've been quite lucky enough at least to work for some of these really great listed entities, two in particular, one in the AIMS market in London and one here on the JC in Johannesburg. So throughout that journey, I met with Stefan and some of his sort of trusted colleagues, senior managers. And once we had won, large portion of market share, we decided it was probably a good idea to start expanding rapidly across Africa and the Middle East. And that's where I came in. So it seemed right. Obviously, I was very keen, and that's how I got the role.
Tell me, your experience overseas compared to here, is the landscape different in terms of recruiting and finding the right talent? Do you think it's a lot more professional there than in South Africa?
I wouldn't say more professional. I would just say that the resources are ever so more finite out here. So whilst we're starting to see a large influx of junior tech-minded folks, very clever drive towards entrepreneurial spirit, and really creating your own destiny in Africa, a lot of that ground has already been covered abroad. So essentially, they're a little more advanced. I would say maybe 18 months ahead of where the rest of African companies are, but we're catching up quickly. And I think we'll get to this throughout this podcast. Is essentially the fundamental difference between what I do versus what other recruiters do, and what Travelstart does versus what other tech or OTA or e-commerce companies do is speed. We execute with speed. Speed is the ROI of execution, essentially.
Well, that's something I was going to ask. You mentioned, I think in our previous conversations, like recruiting over 180 staff in just under 2 years. That's almost termed as Blitzscaling. Do you want to maybe touch on that, and then how you got that kind of reach in such a short amount of time?
Sure. So I think, Travelstart, the product, had a market-ready fit. So you didn't have to over-explain it to its customers. There was a significant demand on our supply. And essentially, when I joined, we basically just looked at the business objectives related to economies of scale and, then worked out what an employee would cost, what their output capacity should be, and then versus what the expected ROI is. And we built a very simple but effective model that allowed us to operate in several channels. So, yes, we recruited over 180 people in under 2 years, but I can tell you it wasn't just a bum on a seat. These people went through vetted processes. We looked at all things, even things like Clarity 4D in terms of psychometrics, although we rely quite heavily still on the combinations of data and gut. We had a look at specific silos within the business and how to, let's say, augment its existing structure so that it benefited springboard trajectory. And I think essentially it's gone really well. In fact, it's gone so well that we're finding ourselves having to just continue this journey. And when I joined, there was 129 people. We're now sitting somewhere close to 400 across 22 different regions. We've got 6 regional offices. So it's getting really, really, really exciting.
Can you maybe dive into the process? Obviously there's the stories of the Googles and that that take maybe between 6 to 18 months to recruit employees, and so much so that they've almost got a bad name in terms of frustration from people wanting to join the company, and with that, I believe that there's they don't only get employed by managers, but they get employed by the employees, underneath themselves. So maybe you can just touch base about your process and how you go about recruiting, finding people, and the interviews, and how long it takes.
Sure. So, I mean, there's an average to hire time of 36 days. That doesn't take into account, of course, notice periods and the actual start date. So basically, from the time that the requisition is received to the time that the offer is signed, essentially you're looking at 36 days. We run multiple parallel processes. I mean, at one point we were running about 150 parallel processes. So essentially there were 150 interviewing processes going on in all the different areas, and they were all at different phases. So there were many, many moving parts to the bigger machine. In terms of frustrations, so I'll give you some quantified evidence, which really makes me feel like I've won the lottery by working at Travelstart. When in 2016, we saw 22,000 applications to work here. 22,000 people sent me their CV in 1 year, and we only hired 105. So it's like 0.08%, something ridiculous like that. And I thought, oh, maybe it was a hyperflex situation. Maybe we were making the right noises in the marketplace, and maybe that might dissipate slightly in year 2. So in 2017, we saw 20,000 applications, and we only hired 83. So what I'm going to say is that our filtering process has become really, really good. I would say that we've got a clear identity of what fits, what works, what doesn't work. There's also an element of self-fulfilling prophecy going on. So essentially, we tend to, a little bit like Google, we're starting to hire people that are better than the ones that are already here, wow, which is interesting because the ones that are already here are light years ahead of anyone else. So I think frustrations through processes would simply be frustrations on my part, really, in that the volumes are unbelievable and they're not always the people you want. So we've also run headhunting campaigns. We've got very many different hiring processes. You have to remain extremely dynamic. So let's take some scenarios. So let's say we've got a contact center here as well that deal with people once they've purchased their booking online and maybe they want an amendment or a change. So you would run a reactive channel there, right? They make the application. You have a mass staffing solution where they do a technical assessment first. You don't want to fall in love with the person and then realize they can't do the job. Then we do first round interviews, which is generally through me, and then second round interviews, which will be through the hiring manager and some members of the team. It's a collective decision, not one person makes the call. Then if you have a look at, let's say, middle managers, there's a variable there. We could also have 1 or 2 guys that are ready to join us. We might go and find 1 or 2 passive lookers that are already enjoying success within their current role. And we'll use outreach tools, things like LinkedIn. We've got ATSs, which help us with filter questions. And then we might run a hiring committee, where we'll say, okay, so this person is coming in substantially more senior. Let's have a look at getting 6 people, not necessarily all from the same unit. And there'll be sort of 3 final decision makers or veto decision makers, and then there'll be 3 advisors. We do that with our senior managers as well. It's very rare that we would use a recruitment agency. When you're getting that volume of applications, let's say in Cape Town and Africa in the Middle East, the reality is those people are likely to have applied to a third-party product provider anyway. So it's simply down to us to sort the wheat from the chaff and make the best decision, not only by us, but by the candidates. At this juncture, I would like to also just suggest that, we focus very hard on not just the onboarding, but also working on elements of retention because they speak to each other. Exactly. So some of the interview questions that we throw out there are, we actually want to know about the candidate. What is your career development plan? What is it you're not getting in your current employer that you think you might be able to get here? Because it's unfair of us to employ that person, no matter how good they are, if we can't actually provide that for them. So a lot of that sort of ethical approach to recruitment is handled in-house. And that's a nutshell of how we go about things. But I could talk to you about it for 4 days, in all honesty.
So it sounds like quite a bit of a fair process on both sides, which is not the normal per se, what you find in the market. Tell me more about. I believe the culture is fairly positive there, and it turns out that most staff struggle to leave. They can't find a better place to work. Can you tell us more about that culture and how you brought that kind of the culture within the organization?
Yeah, that statement's not wrong. I think if I have a think about the catalyst of the culture, it is likely, and in fact it is, it's our CEO, you know. He's got an element of gravitas. We've got a thing here where you have a conversation with him and you leave with goosebumps. We call it the Stefan Ekberg effect, you know, and it's quite cute, I think. And I think we do as much as we can in order to keep people interested. So we do things like a First Friday where each team gets to arrange a small party or get together for the whole company. We do things like town halls, which is every quarter, which allows senior management, you know, their spot in the sunlight to answer any questions. It's kind of open mic night, you know, keep you honest. You can ask anything. We also have all the regular sort of team builder, sort of educationals, training programs, personal development plans. But I think, you know, if you think about the culture thing, there's a thing out there in the HR world called commitment blueprint. And I think we hire for that, you know. The guys come here and they really, really want to achieve something. So we all line up like a pack of husky dogs and we just go for it. And yeah, sure, you know, along the way we bump into each other through excitement and maybe, you know, you might sort of snap at each other a little bit, but ultimately you're all running in the same direction. And yeah, getting people to leave, I can tell you at last check, I'll have to check the analytics on this, but last check, average tenure at Travelstart is 2 years and 7 months, it's a pretty long time.
That's unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty long time. I mean, you know, I don't know if I should be saying this, but I'll say it anyway. The longest serving member of Travelstart is our CEO, 18 years. And then the shortest serving member was not a great hire. They were here for 10 minutes, you know, but they also quickly identified that either we weren't ready for them or they weren't ready for us. And it was a very amicable thing. So I think the average age, of course, being 32, means that a lot of people that join Travelstart have already cut their teeth somewhere else. They've already gone through some trials and tribulations of success and failure. And ultimately, it's a fairly mature environment in that it's a commitment blueprint.
So it seems it's quite a young, high-performance culture, almost like a bit of a mini startup per se. Would you say?
Yes. So this is the crazy thing. So like, we're guilty of referring to ourselves as a startup, you know, but we're almost 400 people globally. So we're no longer a startup, but it's definitely ownership. I love words that we use here, things like, you know, you remain autonomous, but you are accountable, you know. We trust your judgment. You know, so go and do that. We encourage people to fail, but there's a caveat there. You must fail quickly. You know, you don't want to fail over a period of 8 months because then you're draining resources. But if you fail quickly, it's fine. You learn. You know, I think when we have a look at the type of people that we bring in, which again they tend to augment the culture in an area we want to go. These are people that are curious and humble, you know, so they're really super smart and they can achieve things, but they're also humble enough to accept feedback and then action that feedback, which creates collective learning. And that being said, whilst there are days that are really, really tough, it is really, really fun, really fun.
Cool. That's amazing. Okay, so I just want to touch back on your recruiting process and pretty much I guess you can call it your blitzscaling. I mean, anything you can learn out of that process and how if you had to reflect back. I mean, I always like to reflect back and look at what could other people learn from your mistakes. You know?
Yeah. Okay. I think, you know, you've got to treat each team as a case by case. So there are some areas where people are dying, right? And they need people. And sometimes it's simply to facilitate the demand on a specific area. I think you can be very quick there. I think in other areas, if you bring in people too quickly, it can actually disrupt the team, not for the better. So I would suggest a couple of mistakes I've made. In some areas, I may have hired too quick. In some areas, I may have hired too slow. Creating unwanted pressure is something I think people must learn will inevitably happen, but not to take it too hard. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. We've got a couple of things, and it comes directly from the top, which is, you know, when you sit in front of somebody, they may tick all the boxes, but really what you need to understand in terms of being able to cross-team collaborate is is this the sort of person that you don't mind going to dinner with?
Yeah.
Is this the sort of person that you're happy to befriend a family member? And if you can't answer yes to those questions, then it's not right. We try not go for naysayers, but in saying that, it's good if there is what I call, or Adam Grant calls, a disagreeable giver. So as long as they're still delivering and providing you insights into other areas, I think those people are very valuable. I would say watch out for the disagreeable takers. They're tricky to spot initially on the basis that they appear to be perfect, of course. And we also ask very clever questions, things like, who is your biggest inspiration? If somebody turns around to you and they say, my mum or my brother, yes, I believe you, But if you say, like Gandhi and Mother Teresa, it's a little harder to believe because, how did they touch you, Yeah. Now, those are great people, take nothing away from them, and they inspired nations and worlds. But we're looking for the real element, the real motivating factor.
I think you're 100% right there. I think a lot of times we're major fans of just getting along with each other and having that right culture fit. I hate to refer to Google again. I am a Google fanboy.
Me too.
But they use the lack test. So it's like if you're stuck at an LA airport, can you hold a conversation with someone for 4 hours while you're waiting for a plane? And that's always it's a good reference. Could I sit with this person in the airport for 4 hours? Or another example I heard of once was, if you're in the shopping mall, would you stop to say hi to the person and have a conversation? And that's something I always look and reflect back at. Whenever we're recruiting or looking for people, it's, do we get along? Are we going to get along?
Yeah.
If we can't get along, how can we work together?
No, exactly. And there's one or two things you've just said that just reminded me. So there's another little technique which I'll let people in on because I think they need to do it more, is, that whole methodology of, you are how you treat your waiter, or you are how you treat your petrol attendant, right? And that is the real you. So I took this on board and I thought, how can we use this in the hiring process? So what we tend to do, depending on the level, of course, and depending on how business critical the role is you'll get the person in, and obviously they come in and they go, hi, I'm here to meet whoever, and they go and they sit down somewhere, and then we'll get another member from the people team just to pass by and just see how they're interacting with, either our service consultants, our cleaning staff, or our receptionists, who are actually super business critical. It's the most important role in the whole company because they touch every single one of our customers, first,
That is amazing. That's sneaky but amazing. I love it. So thanks, Lee, for all your contribution and feedback so far. I just want to end off with a few last questions, just a bit more about you. How do you spend your day on average?
Stressed.
Oh my goodness. And any recent or favorite reading material?
Yep, the book club. We've just finished Richard Mulholland's Legicide. Really good for entrepreneurs, really good for managers.
And productivity software that you use in the office?
Slack, LinkedIn, every day.
Oh my goodness, Slack. I've got a love-hate relationship with Slack. And the biggest point that you've been dealing with in your business these days, like in terms of a pain point?
Yeah, admin. As companies get bigger, so you need admin and processes. Admin, big pain point.
Admin, it's the bane of our existence. Okay, so just to end off, any future plans of Travelstart scaling further, or are you possibly looking at maybe growing the talent internally more?
Yeah, so again, parallel processes, a combination of both. We're shopping. We've just acquired safarinow.com. We've got good cross-company collaborations with people like Knightsbridge, Hepstar as an insurance business is within the group. But from my side, internally, big training programs this year. We really want to start touching the career development plans and hitting those marks of our travel starters.
Brilliant. Oh, thanks again, Lee. So tell us, how can the viewers out there reach you? Have you got any social accounts or email addresses?
Yeah, sure. So I'm on LinkedIn. We've got the Travelstart careers page, so www.travelstart.co.za/careers. And then my email, lee@travelstart.com.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Lee. Give us a high five.
Thank you.
Oh.